I spent many days in the ACLU office in Boston on the phones. There's hotbeds and there's crash pads. Hotbed is like you're literally just renting the bed for the night. Crash pad is like you have a room and you have like one locked closet that your stuff stays in. We raised a ton of money. That application,
like millions?
Like millions of dollars for the, it was the Greenway Wellness Foundation. I was brought on by one team to do specifically just sales, helping them literally break into new doors. There's a lot of snakes around this industry and that shit happens and it's unfortunate.
She was climbing the corporate ladder at Reebok, working with the likes of 50 Cent and Allen Iverson. And in 2005, she stood up at her Chamber of Commerce and said she openly consumes cannabis. When most people hid, she went public. I'm Jason Raposa. After 25 years in tech and cannabis, I host High Functioning to show what actually works. Today's guest is Holly Alberti. From early advocacy to starting companies, consulting, and now Holla Management, she builds campaigns that move product and reputation. We break down marketing that hits for small shops and big brands, field events that convert at the register, retail partnerships that lift velocity, education that becomes content. This is Marketing That Matters. Let's dive in.
I'm Holly Alberti, and I smoke weed, and I'm a good person. I got, into this space many years ago. I think we met many moons ago as well.
Yes.
And, currently focusing on Holla Management, which provides brands and services the opportunity to expand. And what that means will depend on what the service and brand might need as well. But we really do try to take our expertise, 10 plus years in the industry, and apply it to those that need some assistance.
Fantastic. So I already hear a bunch of things we got to talk about right away because the way I look at this is we have known each other for a little bit. And I remember a couple of weekends ago, you just handed me a bunch of bags from Berkshire Roots. You're like, here, there's like, these are awesome bags. And I'm like, you got to have some. I was like, these are, and I still use those bags to this day. They're fantastic bags. Shout out to Berkshire Roots. And so, but let me just take a step back. What even got you here? Like, what was you smoke weed and you're a good person. I get that. But like, a lot of people smoke weed. Why did you choose to make this a career?
It was early on. So I found that cannabis, I was a later bloomer in as far as consumption wise. I didn't start until later in high school. Self-diagnosed ADD, ADHD, all the things. And I think that I found it really helped me to concentrate. My mom really always instilled plant medicine. That was something that was always present, like whether it was valerian root to help us relax as kids and to unwind at the end of the day, or just different, herbal medications, herbal remedies. So I chose cannabis in high school, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. It's really helping me kind of with my monkey mind, right? Like I'm all over the place. I'm a type A personality. I have a hard time sitting down. Cannabis allowed me to kind of focus. So I began early when I was, a youngin', kind of looking at the history and really just curiously, like, why is this illegal? Like, what the fuck? Like, why is this plant, like, demonized and not, allowed to be consumed by most people, right?
Yeah. That's
when it gets a little bit weird and you start to go back in the history and you start to realize, like, all of the craziness. And, we used to have in our pharmacopoeia in 1890, it was medicine at one point.
Yeah.
And that's when, like, that kind of, it just cracked. I was like, wait, there's way more to this plant than I ever thought that there was. And the hypocrisy got right underneath my skin. And I was like, I can't be quiet about this anymore. And I came out of the cannabis closet professionally when I was on the executive board at the Chamber of Commerce. So I took that professional, front-facing role and said, I'm going to talk about weed. I'm going to talk about cannabis. I'm going to use that term cannabis.
Right.
I'm going to confuse people because they're not going to know what I'm talking about, of course. But I'm going to use it as an opening to have conversation, to show that, like, I'm this individual and, I use this substance and, I'm still contributing to society.
Yeah.
And at the time, it's like, you meet people who they can't talk about it. They can't be vocal. This was back in the day when, and there still is a huge stigma, but this was early on when people were worried about, losing their livelihood, their kids, or different things, just for being
getting
associated.
Getting a child taken away from you and stuff. Yeah. So, like, the Chamber of Commerce stuff is actually kind of interesting here as well. The way I look at this, though, is I can imagine, like, little Holly in her dorm room, whatever, being like, I'm going to change the world. It's not right. You know what I mean? And just that's kind of like what I'm feeling right now, right?
100%. Like, it was one of those super naive after this many years
Of
in the
course.
industry. Like,
100%.
I'm like, oh, you know, we could
College kids
change the
are
world.
all naive,
yeah.
right? What kind of posters were you hanging in your walls in your dorm room?
Oh man. So I wasn't in a dorm room.
Okay.
I actually commuted to school,
All
and
right.
I did the. I finished my college education early. I was very much like building businesses and doing school
Right,
and working.
right on it, right.
So I didn't have time to like have a dorm, and I was still going to parties at other people's dorms.
Yeah.
But you know, I think, gosh, posters. I think I had fabric. Like I had some different really
Fabric.
cool.
That makes a lot of sense. Yes, fabric.
Texture.
Right.
You know, I had that puffy paint when I was younger. So like,
Oh, fun.
You know, I used to draw on the walls with glow in the dark paint. I
Yeah.
don't know. There's probably a bunch of us out there. I had the stars. I had everything. Friends would come over and we had little, you know, sayings, and that was a paint. I owned a commercial and residential painting company at one point. So never paint your walls with puffy paint, kids, because
Right.
you'll be mad
Getting
when
it
you
off.
have to redo it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, I was definitely, I had a YB normal sticker upside down on my wall. You know, like YB
Totally.
normal.
Yeah.
Let's hang that upside down too
Right.
while we're at it.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm trying to get that imagery. So, yeah, and then from there, but you chose a professional kind of career right out of school, I guess, right? So, how did you, and what were you? You said on the board of the Chamber of Commerce, but that's just generic-ish sounding.
before
what is that
that-
for people even? Yeah.
Well, I mean, and before that, I was working. When I was during college, I met somebody who had really cool sneakers on. She had G units on, and I was like, I like your sneakers. And she was like, you know what these are? And I was like, those are G units. And I was like, what do you do? And she's like, I work at Reebok. And I was like, I want to work at Reebok. And she was like, we'll apply for an internship. Like, that's what you can do. And I was bartending, working a couple of other jobs. I applied for the internship. I started at Reebok as an intern. I worked my way up into the women's wellness and lifestyle division, and then went over to the entertainment division, which is where I got to work with 50 Cent and go to Vegas and
That's fun.
with his Get Rich or Die Trying launch.
Were you in Massachusetts at this time?
Yeah,
Have you
that-
always been around Massachusetts?
So Mass is home state,
Okay.
but I was still here. That was like my early days when I was still, going to school, 2021 to 2023-ish. I worked at Reebok in the entertainment division, so I was here based in Canton. That's when they had the other building, and got to go to Allen Iverson's 30th birthday,
Whoa,
which
that's
was a really cool
that's
experience.
fun.
Met so many amazing people throughout that entire, not only people that I worked with directly, but the artists and entertainers like Nelly and Lupe Fiasco, like just some really cool people, and trying to learn as much as I could while I was going through that process of like licensing and how people were doing their deals.
And so you take that information. Did you already were planning your next step at that point?
Yeah, so I was actually developing a consulting company, but I was focused more on an interior kind of organization, like completely different than anything that I do now. But I mentioned I had a commercial and residential painting company as well. So interior design has always been a piece of my world. My mom was an interior designer and a master seamstress, and she was always very creative. And when I was at Reebok, I had a director, amazing gentleman, who was like, you have so much talent, you're going to hit a ceiling here. And I was like, wow, and I was very young, and I never had a guy kind of come to me and tell me, that I'm doing a really good job and I have some amazing skills, but that I'll reach a point where I can't get any higher. And if the footwear industry is where I want to be, like, so be it. I'm going to teach you some things, but maybe there's some, do you want to spread your wings? And he was super supportive. I told him I was working on business plans and that I wanted to launch my own business. And I did. I left the kind of corporate craziness. Adidas was coming in the merger at that point. So
AKA Adidas for everybody.
Adidas, for those that don't know.
Adidas.
For the first time I ever heard it, I was like, Adidas? And, I was in a meeting. Everybody was speaking German except for me and like my director. And I was like, oh man, I'm like, what's happening here? And again, it was just one of those things where I could see the future of what was going to be changing, and now is maybe an opportunity for me to kind of spread my wings. Ironically, speaking of spreading my wings, when I quit and started my own business, like, my parents were like traumatized. They were like, what are you going to do? You just spent this time.
You had this corporate job.
I had a career, I had an education, I had all these things. And, I'm just going to go out and start something. So my mom wanted to be a flight attendant. It was in her book, stewardess, That's what she wanted to be forever. 50 years old, she came to me. She's like, I'm going to go try this out. And I was like, Mom, what? Like, sure, whatever. I'm a supporter, of course. But at 50, like, to go back to school and to do all that. Yeah. So she started with JetBlue, and she did it. She loved it. It was something that she really was passionate about. Somehow I got sucked into, well, why don't you apply? Because we just don't know about this job of yours and if it's going to be a reality.
Right.
It was really exclusive to get into the airline industry at that point. You had to know somebody to kind of get in through the application. So there was an opening a situation. I applied. I did that for a number of years.
You were a flight attendant?
I was a flight attendant, in-flight crew member is what the PC term is, I think, these days.
I'm not sure, yeah.
But, that for her, a stewardess was like very much like this, it was different back when air travel was just coming out to be, right? Mm-hmm. Now and I give a lot of respect to people who still do it because it's not easy.
It can't be easy.
70 hours per month was the part-time position. So like on paper, I was like, this is going to be great. My husband, I was newly married. Like we literally had just bought a house and we were like 2 years into being married. Everybody was like, you're married? Like, oh, you're sucking the fun out of this, honey. And I'm like, oh, man, like, what? Like, what do I not know? And then I started to realize, like, wow, there's obviously people who are very happily married and continue to be so. But there was also this, like, other
side of the...
Oh, man, I could have had a different dude or whatever in every layover area that I was going to. So just a really great experience. Got to meet some awesome people. But I took advantage of every minute. Like if we were on a 6-hour flight, you bet your ass I was working on my business plan in the back alley.
That's fantastic.
So I was really just trying to use that time to hone in and, figure out like what was I going to do next. And marketing was something that I did go to school for. That was kind of like the bread and butter of my training. And so I started to work with small businesses, and that's where I kind of, ended up at the Chamber of Commerce. I was very vocal in my local community.
But did you have that business at that point?
I had a consulting company.
Right.
Like, it was kind of...
Just a generic, it's consulting.
I was doing closet reorganizations, kitchen reorganization. Yeah. So I was like literally going to people's houses and like pulling apart their lives and like making them organized.
How organized is your life?
Oh, man. Well, that's like the cobbler's, kids have no shoes or whatever.
Right.
I would say that it's organized to a certain degree, but there's definitely some things that could be better.
Right.
I don't have to explain to what it's like to work in this industry, but I'm still trying to figure out like more time for me, for sure. But it was, some of these people ended up being like, I have businesses that I need help to organize. And I went to work for this woman who had a ballerina studio. I was literally organizing her life, but I was pointing out all these things that she could be doing to help grow her business. And that kind of naturally like dovetailed into, she was like, I am not paying you anymore for this. Like, this is what you need to come and do and help me with.
Interesting.
And so I worked with, print shop companies, local mom and pops that were doing, printing business cards to, trade show booths and everything in between.
And that's more like B2B? Kind of?
It was
or is
B2B.
there B2C a little bit too?
There's a little B2C, like, because, there's some people that need, whatever they're doing for their school.
Right, greeting cards or
exactly,
something like that.
Yeah, like whatever. But most of it's B2B. And, started to kind of work with those individuals. I also was in the restaurant world, so hospitality, local places that, whether it's like I'll shout out Damien. So I worked at Damien's dive bar, king of dive bars. That's what it was. Hanson, Massachusetts.
You're a bartender?
Bartended for like 20-something years. Waitress and bartend.
That's
literally.
Amazing. Yeah.
Started before I was 18, and I think I left when I left to go to Colorado.
Wow.
And I'm, 40 plus at this point. So, there's definitely enough
it's a big chunk of
time.
So you come and go kind of thing, Damien's?
I did, I was there for a solid amount of time, like through college and everything. I always kept it because it was easy for me to do, the late nights and get home that was 2 a.m. in the morning.
Especially during college, if you were not at your dorm or you weren't on campus.
Commuting,
so you're just there anyways.
Literally,
you
just
take those extra
super helpful. I did the phones. I answered the phones. I did takeout, like whatever it was. And then I started helping Damien, to try. It was like we built the page was Damien's Pub, first name Damien, last name Pub. They didn't have Facebook pages back then. It was, you could only be a person, right? And so I started using Facebook.
Do they still have that?
No, God, you can have.
I'm just saying, because it's weird, because sometimes I'll be on LinkedIn and it'll be like, blah dispensary is trying to connect with you. And I'm like, these are for people. These
Yeah.
aren't like, that's like really old school.
Shout
like,
out to the people who are figuring it out. Like,
Yeah.
there's definitely people who have first name dispensary, last name, whatever.
Yeah.
But at the time, Facebook just didn't have business pages. It like
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
a thing. So to work around that, he, create something, first name, Damien's last name, pub, get an email, and built that out. And I mean, it's a great feed now because he posts jokes all the time. And
Oh, that's great.
It's really comical.
Yeah.
But it was something early on that was just a way for him to get more exposure for his pizza
Right.
shop.
Awareness. It's
Exactly.
everything.
It's
Yeah.
brand awareness. And so, like, again, naturally, that's a restaurant business. I started trying to figure out different ways that I could market to these people and help them with their different services.
Were you consuming the entire time?
Cannabis?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, flight attendant days?
Yeah.
So, by the way, you FAA, you can't smoke. So I had to go through this horrifying experience in my life where I didn't smoke to pass my initial tests.
The screenings and stuff.
Got through that, and then I drank golden seal extract, echinacea, and green tea by the tincture, underrated category. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But tinctures, water, and that was literally my goal on any flight was to just down as much as I could.
Because you're unannounced test or something that might pop up?
So it was completely blind. They did randoms on a regular basis. So as a flight attendant or, as a pilot, in the time, there wasn't as many people on board. We only had 5 of us. So 3 flight attendants and then 2 in the
How many
cockpit.
are nowadays?
They've upped them. I think there's 4 on most of the flights as far as flight crew.
Mm-hmm.
So at the smaller E190 planes, which that's a 100 passenger plane, there'd just be 2 flight attendants, your pilot, co-pilot, and then 2 people.
So wow, okay.
So if you get to when they're opening up the door and you look through the little portal to make sure everything's good, and you give them a thumbs up, so you're basically saying your slide's not engaged and you won't blow anything. So you give them the thumbs up. If you see somebody standing behind that gate agent with a clipboard, you knew somebody on that plane was getting a random drug test. Luckily, it never happened to me. It was so scary, though, that I was on the plane looking through the portal, see the person with the clipboard, and I'm like, oh my God. Is it me? I'm going to be
Are you
the
getting
one?
popped right now? And more importantly, did you go through the protocol of
Oh my
flushing your body
gosh.
out?
And is it working? That was
did it
all...
work?
I never...
That's all bro science. I don't even know if
100%.
any of that actually does anything. But I remember I worked at GNC.
That's exactly where you
And
go.
so people would go in GNC and be like, where's this golden seal,
Yes.
lion, whatever.
And you remember the drinks that they had? They looked like a little
Yeah.
Gatorade, and
Yeah.
they were disgusting, and
Yeah.
it was $50 to drink that.
Because everybody knew what it was for.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could have carried synthetic urine and stuff like that, but that just seemed
That's
really
extra.
Yeah.
That's a bit extra.
So, I mean, I never had to test the theory.
Yeah.
I think it was really healthy. The green tea definitely helped with I was drinking yerba mate. That was back in the
beautiful.
day too, and
Yeah.
people were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like,
Did you have your gourd and your Bombilla?
did. I still have my gourd somewhere. I'm just keeping it because I was turned on to that by another flight attendant who was like, "You're drinking, green tea extract. Let me blow your mind and take
Right.
you over to the yerba mate land."
Right.
And again, a great experience, but I learned early on that wasn't really kind of my jam. And
Yeah.
it was horrifying thinking that again, I remember a pilot being like, I can blow lines and be fine in a couple days because it's out of my system. And I'm
Right.
like, yes, but cannabis is going to be in my system for 30 days
Yeah.
or whatever.
Or if they do a hair test and it's
Forget about
yeah.
that. And so now we had 8 hours was drink time. So as long as you stop drinking 8 hours before your flight time, which is 2 hours before boarding, you're fine. It was so bad. I'm
That's
this
wild.
is not. Again,
Well, because I remember
this is
back
not
in the day,
fair.
there were pilots who were showing up drunk,
Yeah.
and I mean, probably still happens today a little
Yeah.
bit, but maybe a little under the radar. Where
Yeah,
it's
sure.
But it was a thing where all of a sudden this pilot would get pulled off a flight because they were drunk.
Yeah. And so, again, what would you... I'd rather, my pilot had a good weekend and smoked some weed
Right.
4 days ago
Right.
than, have him all hopped up on whatever, designer drug that he's taking today.
Right.
That doesn't show
That's
up on the
such
test.
an interesting lifestyle because I do feel I think airline lifestyle is it's a little bit more you're at home more than say a truck driver.
Oh,
But I
yeah.
almost equate it to the same thing where you're gone for a bit.
Yeah.
You come back and you're okay, now And then do you get the urge to go right back out sometimes? Did you ever get the, like,
I was on
gotta-
reserve, so which means like basically they just you're at the bottom of seniority, so like you're on call.
Because you're at the bottom of the pool.
Yeah, so like with JetBlue, I was able to gain seniority. I was actually based out of New York, so for me commuting, I'd have to get on a plane to go to New York and start my day.
Flight.
Yeah. And if I was on call, like you'd have to be available and ready to go, 2 hours before flight time, which was always like nerve wracking. So I lived with like a friend, like with her mom.
Bag packed at all times.
Crash pads,
Yeah.
like horrifying. Like there's hotbeds and there's crash pads. Hotbed is like you're literally just renting the bed for the night. Crash pad is like you have a room and you have like one locked closet that your stuff stays in, but you switch out and somebody else is sleeping in that bed like majority of the time.
But like what kind of spaces are those? Are they like hotels that have these things? Or is it motels?
Oh, it was horrifying is what it was. No, it was...
Like a friend had a friend?
They've shut some of these down since then.
What? This is a whole new world I've never heard of.
Look into crash pads and hotbeds. There's a couple still that like exist in like the Chelsea area just because like again, like if you're a flight attendant making like minimum wage, like you can't afford a Boston Seaport apartment
going to the Hilton.
and then like also have your regular home in like the middle of the state or whatever. So it was an affordable way for flight attendants to be able to kind of be where their, home base was. And a lot of people would be from Texas and they're, flying to New York to start their day.
Yeah.
So it was really a crazy experience, but a really fun time too.
So you look back fondly on those days because it was just like, it's just crazy.
Yeah, it was like what, I never thought that in a million years that I would be a flight attendant. Like it was never on my map.
Yeah.
And it was just like kind of appeasing, the folks because I was starting something that they were nervous that I wasn't going to have the ability to sustain.
So fast forward again back to you're helping out a few people. You're on the Chamber of Commerce. You've got your consulting group.
Yeah.
And then you just say, like, at that point, you resigned to go into cannabis, or you just took your consulting company and made it a cannabis consulting
I started
company?
being more vocal about it. So I actually went to on the executive board, I was one of two females,
Which people have to understand that, like, we want more female participation on these boards.
100%.
And so they probably were like, you can't leave.
The woman that was, a counterpart, she graduated like Brown University at like 16. This woman was just like an amazing individual and human being. And, when they were like, we're excited, we want to put you onto this, executive board, I kind of looked around, I was like, wow, you really need some female representation here.
Yeah.
And I was honored to be able to kind of sit, like, it's Plymouth, there's
Lots of commerce happening in Plymouth.
There's a lot of commerce happening, but there's also, it's just a predominantly, there's some, some narrow-minded views as well. And
Pilgrims.
I wanted to make sure.
There's
It's
pilgrims.
puritanical as shit. Home of pilgrims.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that there was a diversity that was being represented.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was asked to kind of join this executive board, I was like, okay, great. And I was very quiet, didn't say anything. A few months into it, I realized that I was going to have to I'm, as a respectful individual, went to my executive director and I was like, do you think that my association with cannabis is going to have any type of negative connotation, and is this okay? Because I'm going to be coming out of the closet soon, and I want the chamber to look at this obviously in a certain light, but I also just want to make sure that I'm representing membership. That's ultimately, there's a group of individuals
What
who pay
year
into
is this?
2005, 2000.
Oh, so this is still way early in cannabis world. And cannabis terms in Massachusetts?
Way too
It's
early.
10 years early.
Too
before
early.
you even be more than that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fast forward to 2010, where we're starting to have more conversations about it. And I have been very vocal. They were fine with it, by the way. They were like, yeah, whatever you want to do. And then half of them all had laundry, the list of questions that they had were
Right, I'm
amazing.
sure.
Because they were like, well, I have a friend. I'm like, you are the friend, my friend.
Right.
But I again, was just very much, I went to the town, I went to town meeting manager. I was like, what are you going to do? I was like, what's happening? I'm like, are you gonna stick everybody into a back alley kind of, industrial zone, or are we gonna embrace this and maybe have a dispensary on Main Street in downtown Plymouth? How cool would that be?
Right.
And the town manager at the time and the economic development team and everybody was pretty open-minded to it, but I just don't think that they had a lot of guideposts to really understand how they were going to use it.
No, not that early, because I feel like everybody was waiting for someone else to make the move, to
Correct.
put something downtown and be like, okay, the sky didn't fall.
Yes.
So maybe we might be okay with it.
Exactly.
And it takes that precedence. And I feel like a lot of towns, just the way towns move, towns are
Yeah.
super risk averse with that stuff.
Exactly.
They want to stay in office, despite even though it's like not really like a highly paid kind of position.
Right.
I still don't get public, like, the people who want to be in the public and who want to actually represent like their communities in that way. Like, it's almost like two extremes where there's altruistic people who are like, I'm going to do some big positive change in this world, and then you get a lot of other people who just want power to like push people around a little bit.
Exactly.
You know
Yeah,
what I
this
mean?
is going to help my business.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, fast forwarding again, you have now already kind of like, you're in Plymouth, you're doing the Plymouth things, fighting the Puritans.
Opening up restaurants, like it was one of the
You
clients
opened a
that I had
restaurant
was
as
a
well?
restaurant.
Okay,
Yeah, so it was
helping
like
people, still consulting.
exactly, yeah. Like what do we need to get up and running? How do we get
Yeah.
out there for a grand opening? Like what are we going to do to sustain on social media? And
Right.
like, do we have an email
A
marketing?
lot of this sounds very familiar for dispensaries, by the way.
If you're into cannabis, entrepreneurship, or just like hearing from people who actually build things, check out High Functioning. It's real talk with founders, operators, and big thinkers. No fluff, just game. New episodes drop every Friday, and you can subscribe and listen at highfunctioning.show. All right, let's get back to the show.
You're talking about kind of like maybe like 2016, the
Yeah.
law gets passed, right?
Well, back it up.
Okay, there's another
let's,
before
you know,
that.
who's going to put the ballot initiative together? Someone's going to have to get
Oh.
out to get those signatures. Someone's going
okay.
to have to
Yeah,
get out
talking
and
about
pound
that.
pavement. Man, let me tell you, I spent many a days in the ACLU office in Boston on the phones, you know, pounding pavement, literally in communities that it wasn't my community, but we needed to be able to kind of get people to get engaged.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent, amazing experiences. You know, I think I met Shailene Title at some Harvard building that they were like letting us meet in, and you know, there was like a couple of MassCan members there, and like you know,
which is the normal of
chapter.
MassCan,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. A lot of people don't realize that
That's the normal chapter.
it is our normal chapter. And if you don't know about Normal, go look up Normal and all the things that they've done. Rick Steves is one of my favorite people that is
I love
on
Rick
the,
Steves.
on the
I follow him on
Normal.
social media.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you
I want
have
to meet
to.
him. I would
Yeah.
like to smoke weed with Rick Steves
Yeah,
at some
absolutely.
point in my career. But, you know, just recognizing that there was like a lot of opportunity there, but then also just from my soapbox, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this shouldn't be illegal. This, after decriminalization, was like 98 or whatever. 97, I think medical went into California. Like, there's things happening. And
Yeah.
there's a validity of, you know, people are seeing really positive results, whether it's them, their kids, or other individuals that are wasting away literally from different, you know, ailments and syndromes and you know, circumstances that, like, you know, here's this plant again, like, let's get it on the ballot initiative. And so we did whatever we could to yes on 3.
Was that the first?
That was the medical program.
That was the medical program.
Yeah.
So what year was that?
2013,
Yeah,
2012.
12, I was going to say, yeah.
12
so if
maybe?
it's 12, so you were pounding the pavement in 12.
Yeah.
Medical gets passed.
Yeah.
So medical operators, vertically integrated. as we
Vertically
know.
integrated. So I had started Healthy Hetty in about 2010. Healthy Hetty was kind of this more B2C, right? I'm having conversations about cannabis. People are asking me about cannabis. People are asking me about business and if it's viable. People are asking me how to consume cannabis and
Right.
even where to start. Like,
Right.
what do I do? So Healthy Hetty was kind of birthed from this necessity where people were asking questions.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, well, and Hetty is a connotation that kind of goes back to the underground, you know. Oh, and by the way, I definitely, you know, sold weed for a number of years as well in the underground market, which allowed me to kind of understand, you know, the market, you know, viability, right? It's people out here, they're not saggy pants, you know, young men, certain demographic. Like, they were like 75-year-old women who had shingles in Boston that like didn't have access to the street market and didn't want to go that, you know,
Yeah.
avenue. And so Healthy Hetty was birthed to like bring education and information to people.
Right,
but it
right.
was so much more, because then they would ask like, where can I find my medicine
Where
in
can
this
I
weird
find
gray
it?
zone of,
Yeah.
you know, caregivers. And, well, where do I buy, how do I use it? Like, how do I make it? Magical butter machines, like one of the fun things, like we came across Garen and his team early on with this magical butter maker, and it was like, oh, you can make this at home. And it was this, you know, kind of like, you know, Cuisinart easy thing, stick it on the,
Yeah.
anybody could make oil. Anybody
Right.
could, you know, put cannabis into a coconut oil or whatever their
Right.
desire was. So it was really just trying to like fill this void of like people were eager for information. They wanted to learn more, and there was like no place to go. So I developed that. I actually thought that Healthy Hetty would go into like, okay, maybe we'll open a dispensary. We didn't end up going.
Your brain's
that path.
turning to like, where do we go next?
Like,
from
what's
here?
next? What's
Yeah.
next? And we had actually, I probably still have the piece of paper somewhere, but we were thinking about, going through the application process. And maybe Healthy Hetty was the way that we could kind of bridge that connection.
Why did you go there?
For the dispensary
Yeah.
process?
Because it's vertical.
Well, so when we were putting the law together for the medical program, obviously there was this caregiver program, and that was the only place that you could get safe medicine at the time.
Yeah.
So the next phase in the market, in the industry, was looking at, kind of this application process that the Department of Public Health
DPH, yeah.
was overseeing at the time. All of my platinum highlights come from that scenario, I like to say. Some high school people that I knew
Yeah.
reached out. I was already pretty vocal at that point, going back and forth to California. We had a grower that was involved at the time, kind of in that scenario. We raised a ton of money.
Really?
Yeah, we raised a ton of money. That application,
Like millions?
like millions of dollars.
For
And
a Hetty?
for the, it was the Greenway Wellness Foundation. I think I'm legally allowed to talk about this at this point.
I
but
love it.
There's a
You
few
gotta
things
spill
that I
the
have to.
dirt on this one.
I will only give a little bit of energy
Sure.
because honestly, I think karma will come back for those that have.
There's something juicy behind this. I can already tell.
Unfortunately, like we raised money through friends, family.
Yeah.
We had folks that we brought through because this was like the idea was to create a vertically integrated dispensary, and there were a lot of people that were involved that were in it for a multitude of reasons, but there was a lot of passion behind it. And a good friend of mine, his ex-wife put in a bunch of money, and like this was gonna be the way to kind of break into the space. Unfortunately, things don't always go the way that it's planned.
No, they don't.
And, you can get burned. There's a lot of snakes around this industry. And
Yeah.
that shit happens. And it's
Yeah.
unfortunate, but all I can do is kind of look back at it as a learning process.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's definitely one of those early learning experiences that I think everybody has to face at some point in this industry, is being like, oh, I thought that person was legit.
Yeah.
Or the group or whatever the entity is. I thought this was a legit thing, and it turns out they were in it for the wrong reasons, and they ended up burning me also in the situation.
Yeah. And
So-
a multitude of people, like we were all kind of coming at it from a family perspective, and
Right.
Well,
Well, that's because I think at this point you've got the credentials, because you've been super vocal and you're doing these things, and now you get heady and you're actually educating and stuff
Yeah.
like that. People are like, yeah, we're backing Holly.
Exactly.
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm going to back Holly.
exactly.
So, and I think about those days because at this point I was in New York City, so I didn't know anything that was going on over here. You know what I mean? And the way I look at kind of like how this all started developing, it took a lot of effort, boots on the ground, to be able to actually like do the heavy lifting, especially in the early days.
Yes.
When even just the phone calls alone, I can't imagine how many phone calls you had to make. But getting to adult use, were you in favor of it originally?
So I liked I think as the people, we the people, putting in a ballot initiative together, like the law structure maybe wasn't 100%. But I don't think that I understood what the adult use regulations at that point. I was already in Colorado. So like I had left 2015 to go be in the Shark Tank with Healthy Hetty in Canopy Boulder and try to launch that, to the ArcView and all of the, that was 2015. So there's only a certain amount of funding that you could find at that point as well. So I was kind of like focused on that while everything was happening here with the, what we have currently as our program for adult recreational.
Do you think
it
was
didn't turn out what I
was going to say, did you, so you're...
By any means.
Right, exactly. So it didn't really turn out what you hoped for, but we have the system that we're kind of in right now. We're all kind of dealing with, specific issues individually and sometimes as a group.
Yeah.
But but do you think it could get reversed? there's these some little bit ballot things coming up right now. I think there's 2 groups even, or there's 2 ballot initiatives that are trying to get passed.
Yeah.
That are trying to reverse adult use.
It's so like obviously this is going to air later, but somebody asked me right by the full moon, which was an eclipse as well, and I was like, I'm not commenting on this because like I don't even want to manifest anything out there into ethos. I think that. I'm not surprised by anything. Like, I don't think anything can be, like, shrugged off. Like, I've seen some comments where people are like, 75,000 signatures, like, they'll never get that.
And they got it, though, right?
I don't know that they have gotten the signatures yet. That, I think, is something that they still have to do. But I'm living in a world that I never thought that I would be like, oh, yeah, this is, like, commonplace in practice now. So, like, I just have to throw everything out and say, I hope that because I think that there's some limits in there. Like, I have to read through the bill to understand exactly what they want to do. Maybe there'd be some pros if we, restructured a little bit differently. But it's frightening to think that, like, some people can go through and put forth something that could reverse. Yeah. I mean, like, it's Massachusetts.
That's we the people, though, right? So there's always
the good and the bad,
That's
100%.
Like, that's democracy, too, for better or for worse, right? And so obviously I'm not in favor of getting reversed at this moment. Or changes are always good, of course. We want to always embrace change, especially if the will of the people kind of voted for it.
Yeah.
At the same time, I can't imagine anything like that's ever going to pass because is it the largest crop at this? Yeah, it's bigger than cranberries. That was even like 2 years ago, it was bigger than cranberries. And it's one of the biggest kind of like tax revenue sources. It generates more tax revenue than alcohol at this point in Massachusetts. Like, and there really hasn't been any kind of crazy situations that have occurred that like, some kid stole a car and drove off the bridge and died. Like, there's none of that.
I'm going to restrain on talking about all of the bad product that's in the market right now because I think that's a super issue.
Bad product in the market.
Oh, like moldy product that's being tested. Yeah, like so
exactly the testing lab stuff.
Yeah, we won't talk about that, but like
But I more mean like the general harms versus say something like alcohol. So I'm more I'm more of like a free market person. I'm just like let's just have it all and like and we're all adults and if you're a good parent, you're not going to obviously hopefully expose your kids to those things and stuff like that.
Have those conversations.
And you can have those conversations because I know for a fact that the kids will find a way to access things if they want to access things, whether it's legal or not. Yeah. Right. So it's like let's just kind of legalize it and then we'll just have everything in an equal playing field and hopefully we get really clean tested products. Yeah. Because that's a scary part for me is going back to the old ages where you're just like, I don't know what's in this. And you just have to kind of like, because I've, in a past life, I've had friends who got something they thought it was and it wasn't what it was. Right. Which is super scary.
Yeah. Or you could be going to a licensed retailer buying product that's moldy.
Yeah,
that's
crazy.
A huge concern. But I think, so going back to your original question of like where, this is a scary initiative that could make adjustments. I believe that, just like Philip Morris has been here for years and the pharmaceutical industry has been here for years, like they are very well invested in this industry. And if anyone thinks differently, then just do a little research and you'll see. But I mean, ultimately, are there state initiatives that are going to maybe line up differently with what the federal adjustments will be coming down?
Well, exactly. So if something happens on the federal side, then how do we interpret that on the state side? 100%. I think that's going to be the big kind of like what if in the future. Be like, if that happens, what do we do at this point, right? So I'm a big fan of interstate commerce and stuff like that occurring because I just want product to flow freely. Just make sure I don't want to have to set up a whole new facility in Vermont just to be able to service like a community in Vermont.
Find a licensed partner and
or a partner in licensing and stuff like that. So like to me, here's the thing. And I think this happens with progress everywhere, right? You become accustomed to all the luxuries we have right now and the privileges of having be able to consume cannabis whenever at your leisure, basically, at this point, and not get arrested for it. Yeah. And then if you go to another state, you're like, what's this, the Dark Ages? Yes. Like, you don't realize how much you have access to all this stuff. And so I'm from a privileged perspective being like, just open up all the borders, let's go. Like, why are we
Yeah.
stalled right now? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But it's obviously much more complex. Speaking of the Philip Morrises and stuff of the world, I feel like, and I think this isn't probably a shock, but it's definitely something that I think a lot of small businesses have to be aware of. You're talking about people who have significant amount of money
Yes.
and can push you out of the market in a day.
Yeah.
They can be like, we're just going to take over all of this,
Overnight.
and you don't have any say in it.
Yes.
You literally have no say in this at that point. So that's the scary part where it's just like, if I'm on the hit list,
Yes.
I'm gone. Like, there's nothing I can literally do about it. They have more monies than I do. You know what I mean? Like, there's no other way to look at it.
Absolutely.
They push you out. Whether they're just like, we're going to buy your building and kick you out of it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Just offer a crazy amount of money to the landlord and then you're gone.
Exactly.
Like,
Hopefully they buy the company as well, but, you know.
no, but it doesn't matter. They just want us gone, for instance, right?
Right.
So, like, the people with more money are going to be able to just push us around. That's just the way the world works, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yes, you're right.
But when it comes to the federal side is kind of where I'm going with this. It's like
Yeah.
the federal rules come in, you know, whether it's descheduling or rescheduling, looking more towards rescheduling, but who knows? Nobody actually really knows, you know what I mean? Then you have all these external forces coming in that are just going to push us around
Yeah.
at that point, right?
Yeah.
So is it a welcome thing? I don't know. I just want to be able to, sell our products across state lines, for instance, right now, right?
Yeah.
That's like kind of my mini goal right now is like, how do we get into like Vermont, like I said, or
Right.
something like that, right?
Yeah.
Let's get off our kind of
So-
pedestals real quick, off the dais. And let's think about, I guess, what do you do kind of like from like a today's perspective? In other words, what does your day-to-day look like? So you have all this advocacy behind you. You've raised millions of dollars. You've done the California stuff. You've done the Colorado stuff. You're back in Massachusetts. Adult use is here. Medical market, unfortunately, caregiver, all that stuff is kind of faded. What does your day-to-day look like right now? What do you like? Who are the people you're reaching to and helping?
So a lot of it's all referrals. I'm not really actively out there looking for new clients, which is a great place to be. I work with, so on retailer side or brand side. So for example, I work with a couple of, I was brought on by one team to do specifically just sales, helping them literally break into new doors. Quickly, I was kind of allowing, a little bit of like strategy. Well, hey guys, maybe what's the best way to obviously sell your products? You're going to need some of these tools to be successful. So really just trying to bring them more insight to get, obviously it's selling more of the products. So it's ultimately the same goal that we're trying to attain. But that's an example of like a brand partner relationship that we have, really trying to figure out how to get more exposure for them. They're a small organization. They don't have a ton of funds. They're competing against lots of people who do have a ton of money and also just a lot of other operators that are in the same boat. So really that differentiation or how they kind of stand out in the marketplace, but making sure that they have, the baseline, whether that's showing up digitally, like online, where are people searching?
Well, you're talking about Damien's is the restaurant.
Yeah,
it's just like
yeah.
all that stuff we were talking about before.
100%.
It still 100% applies.
Yes.
It's brand awareness. It's like, how do you get, especially in the restricted amount of advertising we have, how do you get your brand out in front of people? And people say, well, we need to educate more people, or people say like, you need to create like, you have to entertain on social media and do a song and dance. Like, if you're not on TikTok doing dances, you're not going to get. So it's like there's so many variations on things. And actually, in the stuff that you've done, like obviously you can lean on a lot of the stuff you've done in the past to kind of inform, kind of like decide and make decisions in the future. Just that experience itself, it's hard to gain. You have to just live it sometimes and see what works and see what doesn't work.
100%.
And then hopefully people listen to your guidance when they're, when you're in front of them telling them like, you should try this.
Exactly.
Like, is there one big mover for you right now? Like when it comes to like brand awareness?
Well, I think, so one of the things that I focus on is just creative collaborations and ways that you can work with other brands, community partners, organizations, Chamber of Commerce, like whatever it might be.
We're in our Chamber of Commerce.
Good job.
We don't show up to all the
It's okay.
meetings.
And it's hard. Like that's the thing is like there's a lot to do. Like you would fill your schedule if you were, as active as we all should be out into the community or in just, your local neighborhoods or wherever you're trying to break in from a brand awareness standpoint. But, to your point, it's like it's the same if you have a restaurant or any CPG item. It's just that we have to jump through so many more hoops.
Right.
And I think, for one of the, G Love, for example, G Love he wanted his own cannabis brand, G Love Special Sauce. Like, most people know him as a musician. Mm-hmm. Some don't. But go Google him and find out, like Who's Got the Weed, one of his songs, there's a lot. He loves weed. Like, cannabis is something that he's very attracted to. He wanted to find a way to break into the industry. He lives in Massachusetts, by the way.
Okay.
So this is his
That's
home.
The connection.
This is his home state.
How did you get connected with him?
I work with a team that does licensing agreements. I've worked with them for a number of years. Again, another one of our kind of items that we can help with.
And you've done this, again, historically,
we've
through
done it before.
Reebok and stuff like that. Your experiences have come
exactly. A little bit different, but similar.
Yeah.
So the team came to me and they were like, G's looking for someone to work with. They need, obviously, a product manufacturer. You know the deal with how you get weed to the market, right? He can't grow his own and just package it and sell
Go
it
to the farmer's market.
Exactly, yeah. Although everybody wants to. So he came with this really cool logo, Backyard Burners. G loves Backyard Burners. I was like, this is more than we get from a lot of people. Awesome. And then I went through, I really wanted to get Lynn and Brian from Capnos to be that, conduit, because they love music. They're amazing individuals.
And they're good growers.
They're good. They have awesome weed. That's why, that's why we were happy when we were like, yes, we'll help you.
Right.
It just didn't fit. It wasn't the right mix. And then I went to another great vertically integrated local Massachusetts company here. Praise them. They do awesome. It just wasn't, they have gone through the licensing thing before. It wasn't the right time for them. Well, here's G Love doing an event like 2 doors down from one place. And I'm like, we've got to figure out how to capitalize on this. So, of course, I found a producer. They have their manufacturing license and they have retail. So a great way to be able to get the products out there. Yeah. They were down the street from one of the places that he was going to be performing.
Perfect.
So let's line up 6 weeks. I got the product produced, labels created, pre-rolls. I mean, I wasn't rolling the pre-rolls, but got everything ready.
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
See, everybody out there, you can hustle. You could do it faster.
It's not.
If my team is listening right now, you can go faster.
Let's caveat all this because it wasn't done the way that I would have liked to do it, right? So time is absolutely a benefit. If you get out in front of in front of people, you can let them know that things are happening. Mm-hmm. If you tell people 24, 38, 72 hours in advance, they might not be able to show up for your thing, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's pros and cons. We got it done. We made it happen. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the launch that I would have liked to see, but it was more of a soft launch. Mm-hmm. It's all good. If anything,
launches turn to soft launches like that. Love it.
And adaptability. If you can't be adaptable, then you can't work.
But I think it's super important because it's like, as a founder, I'm always like, it has to go as fast as possible. Yeah. But you have to realize you have to have that 20-year plan for your brand ultimately, right? So you can't look so short-sighted all the time. No. So things will mature and things will kind of gestate as long as they need to come to life. And I have to have had learned that over a long time.
100%.
It takes a minute to get everything that you want lined up, and it's still not going to be perfect. But you get the 80-20 of it. And you and get it out there so that you can refine it and continue to, update and make things happen. It's a long game, right? I just had a conversation with John Manlove from Apex. Oh yeah, John. 10 years, man. Like, he was the class behind us at Canopy Boulder. Oh wow. So I've known him for quite some time in that journey, but it was like, you need to have the long view. You need to know what your plan is it might not be the same plan. You might adjust it 1,000,000 times and you might pivot 15 other times, but just understand that it's not the instantaneous. So, in this capacity, it's creating that collaboration, finding the partners that can be able to kind of, produce and get it into the market. And right now we're bringing it into some additional retailers, so it's only available at a couple locations. Okay. And then he's doing his Outermost Roots and Blues Festival in Nauset Beach in October. So October 11th and 12th, they had Slightly Stupid, Mahali, Jack Johnson showed up last year. A very cool, chill vibe, and just a great environment. Coast Cannabis was one of the sponsors last year. Again, getting into places where it's not flooded with other cannabis brands, right? That you have the ability to get your brand, your impressions are more impactful at that point. So,
It's been a long time, but we finally it's been over a few years working with this team to get something up and running. And I was hoping to do it a little bit earlier in this year, but timing is still working out, and we have that festival coming up in October, so
right.
exciting.
Yeah, and I think that, that's one of the old startup hacks we used to always employ, is that you just like get people to be aware of it 6 weeks in advance, start collecting their email addresses, their socials, connect, all the stuff you need to do. And even if you don't have all your ducks in a row, because I feel you need to put a timeline, like an actual time on it, to be like, it's this date.
Yes.
So work backwards and go there as quick, get there, but like work backwards from that date, because even if you miss it by a few days, or in your case, you can't really miss it because obviously you're putting on a show sometimes, but like, you just got to have these timelines that are kind of written in stone and being like, it's this date, so work just to get there. And then you can kind of build that audience as you kind of drive towards that date. Same thing
of like if you want to create a good habit, like if you're trying to like lose weight or whatever, like give yourself that end date and be like, okay, I'm going to work back from this, and then
where
if
do
I
need
get
to
there,
be at this point? Where do I need to be at this point? And I think that's a lot of it has to do with that manifestation and planning. It's just like, hey, this is the vision.
Yes.
I'm going to write the steps down, and I'm going to pick a date, and I'm going to figure out what do I need to do by this date, by this date, by this date.
Yes.
One of the old tech hacks, though, just to go on that off the tangent a little bit, was that sometimes people would put up these landing pages and they'd say like, hey, enter your email address so when it launches, blah, blah, blah. And if they got a certain amount of emails, they would actually make their product and they wouldn't otherwise. And that was just because it was just like, it's software, so you can just make it or not make it kind of thing.
And or not in the software, but that happened in the Canopy Boulder. There was like X amount of people who pre-orders, and he was able to raise like 1.5 with that. And I was like, oh, but I just need $100,000 for Healthy Hetty. Like, what do you mean? Like, he's got nothing and I have an actual thing. But, as you know, it's all about the way that you present it and the way you pitch it and all those things. So it's been, my days vary. Like I've scheduled out calls. I have advisor calls of teams that I've been advising for multiple years. Those are my favorite because it is.
How many customers or clients do you have?
Well, they range. So average is like 5 to 10. But the advisement programs that I do, like as an advisor, like some of them I sit on their board or I'm on their advisement team. And so that's like more of like a regular monthly cadence where we get through, we're looking meetings, at, like just going through, market analysts, going and identifying like if there's some additional things that need to be shifted or pivot.
Do you kind of, advisory, I'm assuming, is separate so there's no conflict of interest?
Correct.
Just because be like, I'm advising you to do some marketing right now and I have a company you should work with. It's called Hala.
100%. Yeah. And I mean, that's like, even with like any of the brands and businesses that I work with, like merchant processing, whatever it might be, like if the retailer needs something, I have a book of business of folks that I've worked with over the last 10 years.
Right.
But it's also, from an advisement standpoint, like one of the teams I work with, we've pivoted 3,000 times, I feel like, it's a online website, and every month it's almost like an accountability coach. Like we're checking in, we're making sure that we're on where we need to be, and then it's the perspectives, right? Like everyone's an expert in their own experiences. Right. Someone told me that. And it is the truth, right? Yeah. Like their perspective is valid. It might, be different from what the other people are saying, but that's where we have these opportunities to kind of like hash out, some of those places where we're either trying to grow or there's something that we're getting stuck on, and just really trying to kind of manage to maintain to get to that next
the
goal.
Accountability stuff is hugely important, and I think it's almost like the whole idea of, remember we talked about this earlier, you had kind of like interior designing, like running through all their closets and all these other things, and my follow-up question was like, how organized are you, right?
Exactly.
It's like having an accountability coach. It's like you still, even though you think I might be accountable, I'm accountable, and then they ask harder questions, you're like, well, I guess I'm not that accountable. Like I actually need to be able to answer these specific things sometimes.
Absolutely. And I think that's like, as with anything, like I'm very blunt and all puns intended. Like sometimes I'll tell some of my clients things that they don't necessarily want to hear. But that's kind of why I'm here, and I work outside of the cannabis industry as well. Like not clients do fall outside of the space, which just makes it, I think for my brain, a little bit of a different, like it feels different. It has a different vibe to it. It's kind of like, again, when you get frustrated over here, I can kind of pause and go talk to one of my wellness companies and, be able to bring.
I do think about that because I've got a lot of platinum as well, I'll say. And it's like having lived several lives at this point. And I can imagine myself being 80, 85 years old, being like, all right, tomorrow these SOPs have to get done. And I could just be like, how long is this journey going to last?
Oh my goodness.
You know what I mean? And you've been doing it for longer
It's
than
a
I
journey.
have, way longer than I have. So, and I just think to myself, I'm like, all right, am I, what problems am I going to be dealing with? And like, I'm supposed to be retired right now, but I'm still part of it because of either passion or something else is driving me to be here.
That's you as a human being,
Right.
Jason. We can't change that. You know what I mean? Like,
No, I know, but I think my wife would love to change that.
of course. And I mean, I feel like even in my times, like, I've scaled back dramatically, like from what I have been, when I was working with Berkshire Roots and still doing things, non-conflicting advisement and consulting, that was just like, it was constant. So, I've made some shifts and adjustment in my world to be able to kind of make it more manageable and make it something that, still brings me joy. There's definitely days that I get frustrated and, want to...
I'm gonna make you frustrated real quick.
Uh-oh.
Sorry. Are you like what makes a bad client for you?
Somebody, if they don't pay, that's probably one of the biggest thing.
I can get behind that.
Which
100%.
I don't even have those conversations anymore. I'm like, who is it? And pass. But I think that a frustrating part is the folks that just don't want to get out of their own way. They've got good teams. They've got the necessary means to be able to have, whether it be a pizza shop or a dispensary or a brand, they have what it takes, but for whatever reason, they just can continue to get hung up. A lot of times I think I'm very guilty of like the shiny thing syndrome, but I think with, a lot of owners or different boards or, executive teams that I've worked with, they're like, well, let's throw all these things against the wall and see what's going to stick. Right. And I'm like, that's great. But here are the things that are actually working. And while you're spending all your time like trying to toss the pasta, these things are literally like getting stolen by your competitors over here. Right. I think it's just, and this is like coaching, right? So like that's a huge hot thing now. Everybody's got a life coach, a business coach, a fucking whatever coach. It's no different than consulting or advisement. It's like
even coaches have coaches.
Yeah, the coaches that have coaches are the best ones. But I think it's just, sometimes they need that person to be like, you got to hit X, Y, and Z. And a lot of times it's like their administrative assistant or their like, I say left-hand lady that like is literally the one that's like, keeping them moving forward. And it's like when that guy gets out of the way, like we get so much more done, and you hear that sometimes.
100%. But I've said that to my team recently because I was like, we were developing a new line of flavors, and the team, I think we did a survey, internal survey, and they came in with a bunch of stuff, and they gave me a sample. And the sample wasn't prepared correctly. Let's say it that way.
Right,
okay. So I tried the samples, and everything was off. And I was just like, and they all said to me, like, well, we should have made them better, of course, but this is just the general idea of where it's going. And I said, stop the presses. Let's do a whole new survey. Right. Let's get a bunch more data. Let's develop, 15, 20 more flavors, and then come all back together in a couple weeks and actually develop this product correctly, because I want to be proud of every product we put out. It turns out they did all that work and came back and just came up with the same idea, but they just made the samples better. And I was like, well, these taste fantastic. These are awesome. What'd you change? You're like, well, I just made it the right way. I should have just made them the right way the first way.
time, exactly.
And I'm just like, we just spent 3 weeks. We delayed the whole project by 2 or 3 weeks because I went off in this big, I'm the CEO, we got to do this big product development cycle and stuff like that. When in reality, we had awesome tasting ideas. We just didn't execute correctly in the R&D side.
Exactly.
And if I just got out of the way, they probably would have, it would have been fine.
Absolutely.
And I just was like, I should have just get out of the way. I should just go on vacation more. Yeah. Because I'm in there just like, hey, what are you guys doing over here? Just getting in the way everywhere.
No, that's okay. And that's part of the process, right? That's part of the journey, that you learn these things and you know when to step out. And, you put that ultimately is like anybody, like you're hiring people that you feel confident that they can do your job. Right. That was like always when I would bring on new people into the team, I'm literally like, I'm hiring to replace myself. And they'd be like, well, why would you want to do that? And it's like, no, this is the idea, is that like the way that you have growth and the way the company has growth and development is like, you've got to think that way. Mm-hmm. But it is, I mean, and also too, as a passionate, entrepreneur and solo CEO, it's like, I can understand where you're coming from.
With shiny brain syndrome or whatever you want to call
it. Shiny object. I'm like, what was that? Ooh, we need 2 of those.
Do you see those guys? They did that over there. Let's go do that.
Yeah.
And I'm the worst. I'm a horrible manager.
Okay.
I'm a great leader.
Yes.
Don't doubt my skills on leadership. managing is not my cup of tea.
Okay.
So the first person I actually hire is an
Yeah.
operations person typically.
Perfect.
So I'm just like, you handle like the management of all these things getting
Yes.
done. I'm going to tell you the big vision where I'm going with this.
Exactly.
And then you got to talk me off a ledge to say what we can actually do.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Because, and then I want you to be beholden, like I want to be beholden to that kind of vision that you've kind of put together now.
Absolutely.
Or that is a reasonable approach to kind of like, it's not going to be 100% what I want, but it's going to be like 70% what I want. And so I always kind of lead in with that, just being like,
Yeah.
I'm always hiring people who are A, smarter than me, and B,
Yeah.
doing the jobs that I'm just not as skilled enough to do.
Exactly.
So the first person is operations, second person is usually sales, third person, in this case, first person actually tended to be production in this case.
Yep.
And I got somebody from the
Makes sense.
DPH days who really knew this stuff inside and out,
Awesome.
who's still with us today, our first hire. But I do know that about myself is managing the day-to-day activities, like my management style is I will flag a bunch of emails and I'll get back to them, and when I get back to them I expect people to get back to me quick. Which is the worst, right?
Yeah. Email etiquette in this industry is like 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I need it, and I actually, my team, so our customer service side though, I'm like, we
Yeah.
have to get back to people within 24 hours.
Absolutely, yes.
Like that's huge because
Yes.
we're a customer facing brand.
100%.
Right. So
Yeah.
there's different levels to it, of course.
Absolutely.
But I've definitely sent a few emails a little bit late, a little bit like over the weekend, and
Yeah.
maybe I've also slacked a few times over the weekend and stuff like that. I always try to hold back on it, but if I lose the idea, I feel I've lost something.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, it's a practice, like as anything in life, right?
Yeah.
And the biggest and the best, advice that I've gotten over the years, because I feel like, early on in a lot of the businesses is like, with Healthy Hetty, it was like we were, we expanded, we tried to launch that in multiple states. We were in Canada at one point, doing everything for that. And it was like fail fast, right?
Yeah,
because
fail
we
fast.
recognized that like there was a lot that had to go into those components, but it was a great learning experience. Like I take away those components as like it's part of the journey, right? Like I'll say it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And that's been something that I've had to like, just relearn or really just kind of like take into account.
Yeah, absolutely. But like you're not in the education side anymore. Hetty was education.
Yeah, I feel like
So-
I'm still educating though.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because I feel everybody talks about like educating consumers.
Yeah.
And I've had many conversations on this podcast about people being like, well, if the consumer just knew the difference between rosin and resin
Sure.
and all this. And I'm like, do consumers care? They might just get high and be
Yeah.
like, I'm happy, I'm high. You know what I mean?
Exactly. 100%. Like we'll just put it this, like there's some new flour that's
Right.
really selling like hotcakes.
Right.
And I wouldn't touch the stuff because I like the taste of weed.
Right.
That's just me. A new consumer who's coming on to cannabis and this is their first rodeo and they're like, this purple punch, whatever the...
Spray
And
terpenes
they love
and all this other
it.
stuff.
And they're like,
yeah.
I'm going, like, where do I find more? To each their own.
Yeah.
It might not be my cup of tea. Like, just like, people drink, people don't drink. There's different, whatever it might be. But recognize who your audience is and go
Yeah.
after that audience and make it happen. It's, yeah.
So out of all the kind of experiential things you've done, has there one that's kind of like popped off you were just like super proud of? Obviously, G-Love is kind of has come up already. Is there anything else you can kind of point to?
I mean, we got to work with STS9, another amazing,
What's STS9?
Sound Tribe Sector 9.
That sounds like some jam band stuff.
They are jam band. They've been around forever.
I knew they were a jam band.
They're like, they just have like a residency at Red Rocks in Colorado,
Nice.
essentially. Like they're an amazing musical funkadelic. Like they cross a lot of different genres. Back when in California, we were working with Gold Drop, which was one of the concentrate companies out there. They're
Sounds like a good name for
known
concentrate.
for they're still around
Gold
actually to this day, maybe in different capacities, but they were making the nice carts, and we did a collaboration with Sound Tribe Sector 9, so they had their own kind of vape cartridge, and it was really cool to be able to kind of pair that with their shows and stuff, but then also like being able to connect with that band like on a real level and like go see them and be able to go to like a festival in middle of nowhere, northern California.
I was going to say,
and stuff like
so in those situations, does California kind of like just like blind eye to like, oh, there's just open consumption at these events. Because in Massachusetts, obviously, it's like private events is the way you kind of get around some of this stuff. But like,
well, so Grasslands,
Grasslands.
like I was gonna say,
Perfect.
honestly, like, so I worked at Harborside for a while, one of the leading dispensaries in Oakland, California, and the general manager actually wrote into one of the policies to be able to utilize a tasting room. So we were like one of the first dispensaries that like you could try product. Tony Vizura Blue River Terps, he had come out with a concentrate. Oh gosh, he's gonna kill me if I don't get this right, but I believe it was like a rosin, and you mix the terpenes in, right? So it was like very like Mr. Wizard science
like a Chobani
time.
Flip It.
Yeah, but like a little bit like more effort than that. You know, you had to like mix up the terpenes and stuff like that.
Had some
and
pretzels and chocolate. And you just throw in the yogurt.
Kind of like that. Super easy, right? Super easy, they said. Everybody would do it, they said.
Right.
But the idea was like for those people who wanted to like mix in their own terps and create the velocity and the viscosity of their vape, they could do that. And so
they could
we
dial
had
in
this
that.
tasting, scenario where we brought people into the dispensary and we had this area where we had, lined up our dab rigs and we did tastings like in the dispensary. So this was 2018, 2017, I don't even think we weren't adult use yet. We were still in the medical market.
Right.
But now obviously fast forward and there are places that you can consume cannabis.
Right.
Massachusetts, I don't know what they're thinking when they come up with some of these regulations and what they're doing. It's unfortunate. Like I know that there's like, the Summit Lounge, which, it's a private lounge. I know there's private events and parties that happen on a regular basis. And some quasi, things that are whatever. And we've been, gosh, how many years have we been going to the Boston Common to protest, essentially, which is the Hemp and Freedom Rally, where every person is, most of the people are consuming cannabis. And I think it's like, it is one of those things where you look over and you're like next to the cops and you're smoking and you're like, wow, this feels so, cool because it should be like, but go back to the free market comments, like it's a plant. We should be able to grow this plant.
Right.
If you want to get in business to grow this plant, you have to go through, like every other business, the processes and procedures that you do to open up an establishment. You have to have your documentations and everything else.
Oh yeah, you have to jump through so many hoops. Like it's just treated like an open kind of situation at this point.
Like not what we have to go through. Not for the. I mean, I feel bad for some of the things that operators are beholden to, and I think that it's actually I think it's slowly killing the industry, and unfortunately,
but small players especially. Because there's obviously bigger pockets behind it that can suffer through longer than everybody else.
If you have another operation in another state, like Jersey, we'll just use that as an example, and you're killing it in that state, or Michigan, you can support what you're doing here. Yeah. It's a lot easier. But if you're a mom and pop have put your life savings into what you're trying to do, and the CCC...
And you got to compete with the person who can just has almost unlimited amount of funds behind them just to like exist and undercut everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not
price compression.
Not ideal.
Yeah. We have this conversation the other time. I just had a conversation with one of our customers about that too. They're like, "What are you going to do about it?" I'm like, map pricing, and we don't have to go too far into this discussion because I know it's not really like super relevant to like marketing because I really want to get to the marketing side. So let's kind of pause on that one. But there's a whole conversation around like, how do you control, as a brand, how do I control how much the dispensaries are going to sell it for? Exactly. If you try to stand up to a dispensary, be like, I'm going to enforce all this stuff, they'd be like, we'll just replace you.
Yeah,
get out of here. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
So it doesn't really go over well in the market. We've tried a few times just conversationally, not actually trying to enforce it formally.
Yeah, of course.
But on the marketing side, though, what size company do you have to be to do some kind of experiential collaboration or whatever?
Nothing. You can be like a mom and pop spot. It doesn't. There's no. I encourage people at any size in any capacity to think about. Marketing is an extension of sales, right? Marketing
Absolutely
is important.
Yes.
It's brand awareness is basically what your hope of this marketing is.
But you get Hearst Media calling you up and say, "Hey, we're getting you on USA Today," and Hearst being one of the original prohibition.
I was just going to say, don't get me started on Hearst.
But USA Today calls you and they're just like, "Hey, we'll give you like an $8 CPM," and you're like, "Okay, great, that's something," and you don't know anything about marketing, so you're like, "All right, here's like the $1,000 marketing budget we have this month. go make magic with
and
it.
you think, like,
and you
oh
think
my
it's going to be
gosh.
like, we're going to make
They're going to be running through the
10,000.
doors.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard. I mean, digital marketing is very much a weird space, right? ROAS, return on investment, all the terms, like, and people can throw around alphabet soup, just like,
Yeah.
cannabinoids. And
Absolutely.
it can get confusing with
Yeah.
SEO and all that. I think, like, LSO, local search optimization.
Okay. That's the first time that's ever been brought up in this podcast.
LSO, local search optimization. If you're not doing it, if your company that you're paying isn't doing it, please call me. I'll help you.
Yeah.
It's very easy. There's some basic things. Everyone has a Google
Some
business
checkboxes
profile.
you have to do, yeah.
You have a good business profile. You have a business profile probably for here, but you don't want people coming to this facility.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Like, there still should be a presence.
Oh, we should still have it too as a brand? I thought you meant just dispensaries.
I mean, hey, awareness is awareness, impressions is impressions. You're
That's true.
competing against people who are spending dollars
Yeah.
with geofencing campaigns and Google AdWords. So if you could have a profile and it's just one more, I call them crumbs, right? Like the crawlers, the people that are ranking all of the web stuff. Like, I call them crumbs. Like, the more crumbs that you have out there, the more that they're likely to come across one of your crumbs, and it's going to help you overall show up, right?
Okay, so LSO is even important for brands too. I'd never heard that before. I think of LSO as like you're just trying to get people to your dispensary kind of thing, because it's like you want to rank there. Obviously, it's super important in that
And
case.
I mean, SEO is the one that you hear more of, because search engine optimization obviously is like a big term that people use. But like, really optimizing for your local market is something that's really important, especially if you're a brand in a specific location, or a dispensary in this case in Massachusetts.
But what about so we're talking about the small guys again, because I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of small operators who listen to us, brand or dispensary or whatever. Like, how much money should you be allocating towards marketing? Like, do you have a ballpark percentage you like to kind of go with? Or?
Oh man, that's a tough one, because in the cannabis industry, what you see is a fraction of what you would see in any industry. So like, when people, traditionally it's like 15% of your sales should be spent on marketing. I've seen some reactions when I brought that up in meetings of, it's
They're like, they don't have 280E.
Yeah, exactly. Like, tell that to the
Yeah.
people, that is a reality, and that is a big part of, again, some of the restrictions. Most places don't have to badge their employees like 3 different times just so the
Right.
person can work in a
And
certain
just
department.
walk into a new building. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that there's a caveat, right? So like, here in the world of marketing and cannabis, in any state, any country, do what you can. I don't think it's wise. I've seen a lot of players. A fun one. It was the wall. What was it called? The museum, weed museum or something. It was somebody sold, a company that I was working for at the time, this idea that they were going to come in and outfit their retail with this wall that was going to have all the different kind of like history and topics, and maybe like CBD, THC, like whatever. It was this $40,000 installation.
Whoa.
And again, I had a painting company, residential commercial painting company. So I'm like, what are they doing? Painting your wall? It's expensive.
$40,000
Yeah, exactly.
wall, yeah.
So if you get out, like if you sign up for something and you're now out in front of yourself, like you've spent more than you need to, that's not a good place to be in.
Right.
Nobody needs to be there.
Right.
We all need to be thinking very lean and tactical, but you have to show up in some capacity. So there's definitely ways, like $0 spent. I will remain nameless of some of the companies that I've worked with where I'm like, what's my budget? And they're like, did you bring one? And I'm like,
exactly.
They're like,
we're paying you.
Didn't you bring those bags, those blue Q bags that you have with you? And I'm like, that's not what the idea is. You have to have a little bit of something to do it.
Right.
But it could be like, literally, we have no budget. Okay, well, what can you do? Can you show up for the Chamber of Commerce? Will the Chamber of Commerce do a ribbon cutting? Have you done a networking event with the Chamber of Commerce? Like, I don't know, you've been to those meetings before. They're always looking for a place to come. Of course they want to come to a dispensary. Like, get those people in your doors. You don't open till 10, great. Have it at 8 o'clock.
Right.
Now you don't have to have as much staff there. You can make this feasible, whatever. Do work with your partners if you are participating in an organization. And it's unfortunate because I think that this could be as simple as like Leafly or Chamber of Commerce if you're paying for something, but you're not optimizing or utilizing that to its fullest potential.
Yep.
Like, maybe just revisiting some of the things that you're already paying for to see
Right.
if there is something that you can do a little bit broader. But it's, it's impressions, right? Everything's impressions. And I don't care if it's social media or us having a conversation
Right.
and it's like,
There's an impression right here. Yeah.
it's good vibes, because like, it's the amount of times that person is going to hear your brand, whether they want to or not. I scroll through LinkedIn and you come up, like even if I don't listen,
I may come up a
I
few
see
times.
your face, and that is an impression
right,
for
right,
your
right.
brand, right?
Yeah.
So like, and people might, Canna Planners, Will does a great job of like putting himself out there, but that's an impression, and now he's, you know, maybe in the land of LinkedIn has, you know, influenced over 5,000 people or whatever the case may be. But anything to get your brand in front of people is going to be helpful, because as you know, and I feel like you and I are similar with, you know, all the things that are happening, all the distractions, all the
so many
notifications,
distractions.
there's lots going on. So now you take the average consumer and they've got their phone, it's going off, and they've got their life and their things and their world.
Right.
And you want to break through with, again, no education, with your rosin awesome vape pen that nobody knows about and why that's a big deal. Like, you have to just kind of hammer them over and over again.
Those crumbs.
Exactly. Or like habits, right? Like, usually habits don't become a thing until like so many times, 21 days or whatever. So treat your customer the same way. It's similar to an employee. Like, sometimes you have to tell them several times before they actually get it.
Right.
And that's okay, because we all learn differently. We all absorb information differently.
So what would you start with if you were like starting a new dispensary, for instance? What's the first thing you do? Chamber of Commerce, you obviously...
If I was starting a new dispensary...
If you were to start a new dispensary in a town...
Do you have a website? Is it working for you? I feel bad for the industry, too, because I think this is the only place that it's so expensive to build websites.
Websites are so expensive sometimes. Depending on who you ask, can be really pricey.
Yes.
And then you've got to get your POS attached to the website, your point of sale.
Yeah.
And then, so assuming you've got the base stakes there, you can actually take orders online.
Yes.
Like, what is your next step? Do you get like, you know, hey, you might be good on camera. You're silly. Let's go make some TikToks. Or is it like, or are you calling up Leafly and being like, hey, let's start a campaign?
I think the baseline of just making sure that you're on, you know, there's a couple of platforms that you can list. Actually, for those that don't know, Leafly is offering free listings at this point. So you don't have to pay to be listed on Leafly.
So that's a recent change.
It is a recent change.
And I feel like that's a recent change across weed maps as well.
I have not confirmed, but I wouldn't be surprised if they just
Oh, you know what
that.
it is? It's for social equity.
Okay.
And they've extended now social equity to anybody who's listed as a disadvantaged business, DBE under SDO.
Okay.
So as an MBE, I actually get a free listing on weed maps.
Okay.
They just called me literally like 3 days ago.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I think that they recognize that, like, at, you know, whether it's 500, I'm just making up numbers, but if their starting rate was $500,
it was like 2,000, but yeah. I was like, I'm never buying that for a single landing page. When your rank keeps on going lower and lower, your traffic's going down. So now you're offering free pages. That's fine. I'm sorry. I'm the good feels guy.
No.
I got to be positive here. Sometimes I see the negative side.
I'm going to talk about one offline for another one with this. We'll talk about that later. I just think that, like, any place that you can show up, and if that's, you know, freelistingwebsite.com, so be it. Like, put your information out there, because everybody's on their phone. Most people, if they don't know where they're going, weed near me, cannabis dispensary, there's certain search terms that they're looking for. But you can still kind of make yourself, those crumbs, you can still put yourself out there in different ways to be able to make sure that you're at least showing up. So, you know, like, that's just one big piece of it. But then also, like, just get out in your community. So, like, whatever your local neighborhood, whatever your local spot is. Yeah, like, if you're opening a dispensary in, you know, Kingston, Plymouth, Massachusetts, like, home of the Pilgrims, whatever, you should get out and start to, like, meet and mingle with your local neighbors. Sometimes your neighbors will be your best customers as well.
Right.
And, you know, just try to figure out how you can, again, it's an impression, right? So now you're kind of getting out into the local community, and you're trying to do everything that you can to ingrain your brand into their brains.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're literally interrupting people's lives.
Yeah.
And I think about all those kind of like pieces of advice that you're giving. And obviously the LSO, I think, is super important, especially for the dispensary side. There's an expertise and skill set to some of these things. Are you going to be replaced by AI anytime soon?
AI is replacing all of us. That's the goal. I mean, did you not see the Terminator? Or okay, I'm just making
Which
sure.
one? 1, 2, or 3?
The first one.
Oh,
of
the
course.
first one. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
I mean, that's, you know, the ultimate you know, callback here. But I think that it's funny, because I was going to say, or is AI going to replace me, if you didn't add that? I think that AI is an interesting component. I'm not sure. So, you know, what's the cost of AI? Like, this is an existential question here, but like, what is the cost of AI for that brand? Well, maybe they're just utilizing it and they're doing whatever, but do they have a family that they would like to leave this earth to? Because I'm not 100% certain that AI is a sustainable program that we all want to jump behind.
You do hear about things that like how negatively, like it's
the amount
like,
of energy it takes for these like servers to generate and like, you know, like that's kind of scary. So like and I have heard that they're making like these buildings and stuff like that in rural parts of wherever that actually need, you know,
I think the last number
structure.
I think the last number I heard was in order for OpenAI to OpenAI is scheduled to take on another 50 gigawatts of energy, and I think the U.S. only produced in total 52 last year.
So, yeah, that's really reassuring. I'm excited.
Go computers. I'm on your side, just so for the future. In 20 years from now, when you're in charge of everything, I'm on your side right now.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. All the things.
Don't terminate me.
Yeah. I'm already on a list somewhere.
So, yeah, I'm on many lists, believe me. I'm on all kinds of stupid lists. Take me off your email.
But I think that there's a, you know, like obviously every person that I talk to is like, oh, well, I'm using AI. Like, and owners are getting more involved in their businesses.
Well, I was going to say, that's where I was going with this, is like the founder of the business, they spend all this money to get to launch, and then they open their doors and they see like one person show up, and you're like,
it's disheartening.
What am I doing? Why did I even go down this journey? And of course, some people took it, you know, started 4 years ago.
I was just going to say, I don't think that they actually knew what they were getting into.
They didn't know, right? And so anybody who's starting today should be well aware.
Sure.
If you're not aware, do your market research.
Yeah.
And go out and go visit some dispensaries on off days too. And you'll see all the bud tenders being like on their phones behind the counter.
Please. Yeah.
Or you'll see one bud tender and he might be in the back room, or it might be in the back room. And then all of a sudden you're like, is anybody even here?
Yes.
I've seen that before. Going to a dispensary and be like, is anybody actually even here?
Yeah. And be smart, like readjust your whole operation, right? If you need to be able to survive. I am like pleading with everybody to like hold out, because whatever's happening in the market is going to be a short-term situation, a blip. And I do think that there's like an awesome opportunity for craft, good quality products, like 100% in any industry that it's viable. We're just in a really shitty situation right now with, you know, some cultivators that put out a bunch of products and this oversupply to, you know, to people that are, you know, looking elsewhere for, you know, more bulk. And
yeah, I was going to say, I've heard some crazy stories recently about, what's that word? It starts with an I can't remember. But basically people taking stuff outside of the market into the market also.
Oh, okay. Like illicit?
Yeah.
Is that
well,
the I word?
Not illicit, but no, it was the, basically taking stuff from like hemp Delta 9 and somehow.
Oh, yes.
I always say the word repatriating, but it's not the right word. Okay. But like kind of bringing it into the system to make it part of the the metric system.
To the metric system, yeah.
So like all of a sudden you've got, because you know you can get hemp Delta 9 for $700 a kilo or something like that, right? If it's been chemically altered, or you could get it. I think the naturally derived one is still probably around like 1,200 maybe. I can't remember the last prices on it.
Okay.
We're also in the hemp market, so I kind of have a pulse on some of these things. But the naturally derived one, which you can actually like point to a farm, maybe like it grew there kind of thing, is like $1,200 a kilo, right? Where in the market right now, it's $5,000 for us, right? So it's like difficult to operate in that market. But again, if it is growing inside these facilities who are taking all this energy and lighting and stuff like that, and all these bodies to, you know, trim and cultivate the plants. Right. There's a lot of effort that obviously goes into it. But yes, everybody has to readjust their financial models at this point. But hang in there. I agree with that. Hang in there as well.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a bit of a shakeout right now happening, and I feel like we've kind of already rebounded a little bit.
Yeah.
We actually ended up raising prices recently because part of it's because of tariffs, and not so nice.
Not so nice.
But so just to like absorb some of the costs. We were absorbing it for a while, but then eventually we were like, we have to raise our prices because like we have to also survive too. You
Absolutely,
know what I mean?
yeah.
But when it comes to, I guess, maybe some last tips or tricks, like what's working really well like right now and what you see out there right now that's working? Any particular platforms you want to shout out that's really working well? Tactics?
I'm going to refrain on the platforms.
Okay.
I think that, you know, obviously, like I said, digital is really important. But I think from a tactics standpoint is there's and this is specifically for the cannabis, product side and kind of the retailer world, is like, why are you different?
Right.
Like,
Why do you exist?
Why do you exist? Like, what's your why is
Yeah.
really a great piece. If you do have a story that you can kind of like, amplify and tell your consumers, that's always helpful as well. But like, what makes you different? Like, oh, you're a flower. You grow flower. Okay, great. Do you grow it in anything special? Like,
Right.
do you sing to it?
Right.
Do you plant on the cycles of the moon? Like, there are absolutely cultivators that are doing some special things out there,
Right.
but it gets lost because,
Yeah, it does.
like, again, to produce the product and then to market the products, two different things. And we're asking potentially a bud tender, like that person, that conduit in the in-between, to be the source of all knowing.
Yeah.
And that's a lot to put onto their backs
A
as
bud
well.
tender who might be also making
4,000
minimum wage.
Yeah, if that. And 4,000 SKUs later of all
Yeah.
the things, and they're just trying to make sure that they can keep their job at the end of the day,
Right.
and, with all the great benefits it comes with. I think that they were asking a lot. So, like, again, like, if you have the ability to just kind of like shine, like, what's the two things that make you different from the other person that's growing weed down the street or, producing a product or whatever, and really try to hone in on that and be authentic, right? So people do, if nothing else in my career, I hope that the women that that have come to me and told me that I've inspired them, like, that's my success. That's my currency. That's what makes me want to continue more, right? And so I think being authentic in a space with so much like TikTok, with so much bullshit at the end of the day, like, I think that can come across in a really great manner. And I think that customers are looking for, to a certain degree, like some realness.
Right.
Again, going back to the education though, because like there's people out there that are like, oh, I just want the highest THC products.
Right.
I'm like, you're killing me.
Right.
But I think that, even in California, it took a while for the consumer to come in and be like, you had that CBD dog that was like high in CBD and you made me try it and I really liked it. Do you have any more? Like it takes them, like, you shoving
Is
it in
that
their
happening
face.
in California now?
That happened
It's
in California when I was there right before 2018. We had the CBD dog strain. It was high CBD. It was like almost like a 3-to-1. And we had some like heads that were like, they didn't come in anymore or they whatever. And you'd see them and they'd be like, oh, I'm not, whatever. I'm done with the sativa. I'm burnt out. It's like, all right, well, just try this, just put it into the mix. And I think, again, for somebody who's smoked weed for a really long time, it was a different feel, completely different effect,
Right.
something that they weren't expecting.
Right.
So I think that we all, like, this is what I know and I love, and this, you can't tell me otherwise. Well, sometimes you don't know.
Yeah.
And
you don't.
I do think, like, I just saw a brand that came out with some dad weed as like lower
Dad weed.
testing.
Yep.
And I know that there was another company that tried to do stuff like under 17%.
It's so hard.
It's
'Cause
hard,
especially, I mean, it's compounding factors, of course, the price compression, but it's also just a simple fact that, like, the buyers also have to manage a ton of SKUs.
Yes.
And if you go to a buyer and say, like, hey, I've got this really great product, it just smokes really well and it tastes wonderful, it's 13%. They're
Yeah.
gonna be like, I'm gonna sell 1 unit a day, maybe.
Exactly. And in order to get those people converted, like, you have to give them product
Right.
and have them try it. So, like, that
Right.
doesn't work because, we're not allowed to give out any free samples in this market
But I
either.
think don't get me started on that one.
I know.
Because I can't even try my own product right now. But Dad Weed, I think, is a really good example of that because I have heard of that brand, and I think that's different, right? So I think for the audience's sake, if you are a small brand and you're trying to get ahead in this game, or you try to stand out, you have to be different. Do not take those words lightly. You have to be different. There has to be something that differentiates yourself. And if you have to go to your cultivator, go to your grower, who might be this master grower of 20 years in the basement,
Yes.
whatever, ask them, like, interview that dude or lady and just be like, hey, what makes this so special?
Exactly.
And then let them go on a diatribe because they love the plant so much
Yes.
for 20 minutes. Put that into ChatGPT, distill it down to like 4 key brand points, maybe 2,
Yep.
and then be like, here's what makes this strain different. Put that, like, interview the cultivator. They're going to know better than anybody what it is, right?
Yeah.
But I do feel like, I think a lot of people just gloss over that phrase, like, be different all the time. They're just like, yeah, I've heard that all the time, but I get bills to pay. And they're just like, well, listen, if you don't want to be different, you're just going to get lost in the sauce.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening more often than not is that everybody's like, well, I'm for everybody.
Yeah.
And you can't be for
It's
everybody.
hard, yeah.
Unless you're Verano or whatever, you can't be for everybody. You just can't.
And that's what most brands are looking for. Like, I'm in my roles, I've always been asked, like, you know, I'm like, well, what's your persona? Like, what do you want to, like, identify who your target consumer is? And they're like, anybody over the age of 21 with a heartbeat in the wallet. It's
Exactly.
like, okay, well, yes, you're right. Yeah. However, you know, your brand's going to resonate with different people in different ways. Right. So I think that there's ways to be able to try to capture the entire market, depending on who you are and what you're building.
Right.
But, you know, it's just one of those things that even in the product description, and I just pointed this out to the G-Love, like, I'm like, there's people who don't know who G-Love is. There's people who do. And that should be a line. And if you're local, you know, locally owned operator here, or you're women owned, or LGBT, whatever you want to highlight, put that in the product description. Like, I feel like, again, we are so restricted when it comes to that menu, and it drives me to the moon and back. Like, when it comes to your, you know, the menu interface on what they're dealing with from, you know, a dispensary standpoint, there's only so much information you can put there. There's only so much that you can do with it.
And also be compliant and all this other stuff too.
And also be compliant and all that's fun stuff. But even the system and platforms themselves only can be able to hold so many things. So, like, if there isn't a place to identify that your product has CBG and CBV and CBF, I'm making that one up, put it in the description.
Right.
Like, write it in the fucking title.
Right.
That's in your product, because there's somebody out there like me who's looking for CBG or CBV.
Whatever, yeah.
And people don't know, and they're going to hear these small little excerpts, you know, somewhere, and they're going to be like, oh yeah, that, you know, Real Housewives of whatever was talking about that cannabinoid, and now I have to find it.
Right.
So, you know, again, that will help.
And you show up.
When you show up, maybe you show up. Maybe you show up, maybe you don't show up. That menu thing is a whole different ballpark. When we're talking about that optimization on your menu specifically, it's just a whole nother beast. But, you know, put it someplace else then and talk about it. And so that way when people are looking for you, it comes up.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on the pod.
Of course. Highly entertaining.